Three, two, one. We're live. Hi, everybody. Hi, our listeners, and welcome. And I am so honoured to welcome Dr. Liz here today. How are you, Dr. Liz?
Hi, Karen. I'm wonderful, thank you. And what an amazing opportunity to have a bit of a chat, hey?
Yeah, isn't it? And you are wonderful. So let me just quickly introduce you for those of you who don't know Dr. Liz is an amazing member of the health and wellness industry. Her business is called Link Nutrition, and she is an international health and well-being expert. And so what I'm going to do, I normally do a little bit of a bio with people, but I'm going to hand over to Dr. Liz because she can give some information about that and expand on it herself. So Dr. Liz, introduce yourself in the way that you would love to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Karen. My pleasure. And it is a little bit of a challenge giving a snapshot because I have done lots of things. So I'll start off. I'm probably more well known for my academic work. So I'm a professor of nutrition and dietetics, and up to a couple of years ago, I was best known for my research in the area of nutrition and cancer, also older adults, malnutrition, body composition. And so I've been fortunate to lead an amazing team. I was head of the Nutrition and Dietetics Masters at Bond University. And with my researchers and my PhD students and master's students, I've been involved in some of Australia's largest nutrition clinical trials, but also internationally as well. So I've had I think we're up to about 170 peer-reviewed scientific papers now, over 4 million Australian dollars in research funding, and lots of amazing publications and work all around the world. So that's sort of what I'm more known for. But if those people have sort of been following my journey more recently, I have basically transitioned out of academia into the world of entrepreneurship to support people with their nutrition, with their energy and health and well-being. So that's really my latest passion.
Thank you, Dr. Liz. And I heard you say you studied at Bond. So have you been in the academic world in the Gold Coast the whole time?
Not the whole time. So the simple answer to that, Karen, probably is I've worked at some of Australia's best known universities. So
Wow.
I've had, so my trainings was mainly in Queensland at QUT and also University of Queensland. But as well as working at those two places, I've also worked at Flinders University in Adelaide. Internationally, I've been a visiting research fellow all around the world, and I was actually very fortunate to head up. So I came across from UQ to actually head up the new Masters of Nutrition and Dietetics program at Bond. So for about the first 7 years, got that set up, got full accreditation, led an amazing team, and we got graduates, and our motto, which I'm very proud of, is producing dietitians with a difference who make a difference. And I'm very happy that I really got to start that and see that we actually did manage to achieve that mission.
Wow, that's fantastic. And I believe that you've gone up the ranks of academia to the highest level, I think, isn't it, as a professor?
Professor in terms of academia, professor, yes, it's definitely the highest level. So anyone who is in academia knows, I mean, depending where you are, but it can, just like other industries, it can be incredibly competitive. And some people joke about how many people did you need to tread on or whatever to make it to that level. I'd like to say, as far as I know, it's been on the merit of myself and my team. I think we've been very, very collegial. I don't think we've done anything nasty, but it's definitely very competitive, and particularly for women. Like, it's one of those classic things where at the junior levels, you start off with an even mix of genders, and in fact, sometimes even more women. And then by the end of it, you're lucky if you get about 20% or so women at the top levels. And so that's at the professor level. I did also have the opportunity to be Associate Dean of Research for the Faculty of Health Sciences and Medicine. So that was faculty-wide, and that was an amazing experience as well. So also in those sorts of leadership positions, we were fortunate in our faculty because we had lots of amazing women. But same thing, typically, just like in business with CEOs, we unfortunately don't tend to see enough women in those top positions. And, we could debate all day on the reasons for that. But in academia, although it is improving and we're trying to improve it, those same challenges are very, very real. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I didn't realize we would touch on this today, but it is a really hot topic at the moment, as you say. And I am actually doing a white paper to support and inspire women in male-dominated industries, as you know. And I know Amir is on here, so I'll just say hello to the people who have joined us. So we've got Mark Inkster from New Zealand. We've got Amir Michelle from Sydney. Hi. And Anon, I'm not sure from where, and Boadia, which came on to some of my others, and also someone by the name of W. Kurnia1 ST. So lovely to have you all here. Welcome. So what I was going to ask you was, in that academia world, the women who are of equivalent rank, shall we call it, do they have pay equality, or is there still an
that's a good point. In theory, I would say yes. It's not completely transparent depending on the institution, so it is hard to say. But what I will say is, in my experience, women just go with whatever the promoted level is and whatever the typical pay is. Whereas the male professors, some, not all, but some are much better at negotiation and will negotiate not only salary, but packages, bonuses. In research, for example, a postdoc student, or various money to start up a research lab, which women either don't even know that that's an option, or just, think, well, that's what they've offered me, that's what I take. So
Yes.
the answer to that is, technically it shouldn't be much of a difference, but from what I'm aware, I think sometimes there can be quite a difference, but it's often because of the proactiveness or confidence or familiarity with the negotiation on the senior male half. Staff member. So yeah, it's a really interesting one, and part of it is you just don't know. So I know I've been, as I said, they are trying to improve things. So I've been fortunate enough to be part of many leadership and mentor, and I've also mentored, the young rising stars coming up through the ranks. But often it's not until you start having these discussions with other people that you're like, oh, I didn't know I could even do that. And, so it's part of that sharing the information and also the skills. And then I guess having the confidence to just give it a go.
Do it. Yeah. And that is what I've discovered, Dr. Liz, about this whole issue, is that it's not simply that women are not recognised as an equal and paid and have parity. There's a whole lot more to it, and it's often there's two issues. Is the men a man is naturally more generally, if you can generalize, more ambitious and more accustomed to thinking about negotiating for their going up the ranks. And so and increase in pay and increase in recognition. And women tend to think, like you say, that tend not to be as aggressive in that way, if you could call it aggressive, and I'm not using that word in a negative way. And that's part of the issue, is that women don't realize that they can go and ask, that often the man doesn't get it either unless he asks.
Completely.
Whether
completely. You can't, because they're not going to offer it. This is what I've learned. You're not going to get if you don't ask. And I do have a lovely example of two senior women recently who did ask and did get, which is fantastic. But a lot of that was through key mentoring, sharing examples and data, and knowing how to do it. And if you don't know, you don't know what you don't know. So yeah, I think a big one is asking, and also having amazing mentors or leaders who are happy to share their experience and their advice, and even to be when you need the motivation, or a shoulder to cry on if you need that as well.
Yes. So all of you women out there who watch this, just remember that if you don't ask, you're not going to get. No one's going to come up to you and say, here, do you want a promotion? Here it is. Or do you want more money? Here it is. Because in fact, people respect and honor people who respect themselves and value themselves and are willing to do that. It's a whole topic that we could talk about for a long time.
I was going to say we could. I also didn't know we were going to get on this one. Sorry to drop that one, but that okay. And the self-worth and the boundaries, maybe we should have a chat about that at another time. But I think that's a huge one. And you're right, because it then shows that sense of self-worth, which then goes on to the senior leadership team as well. So yeah, it's a big one.
Yeah, and people want a confident person who values themselves and has a good worth in a position of authority or in a level of executive or, you know, in the academic world, you know, as a professor or as a doctor or, you know, someone who is coaching and teaching and in a position of authority. So, yeah, that's an interesting one. So, girls, come on, we've got to learn to be better at negotiating. You know, I always love the story about, I won't talk about it, but I will talk about it, but just really briefly. But I won't say who it is. Someone I know very well who's a lawyer. And same thing, she was early in her career and got made associate within 2 years, I think it was, out of university, which is really unheard of. And when I asked her, what, you know, how did you get that? Did you ask for it or did they offer it to you? And she said, no, I asked. So that's your answer. You want, and you know, it comes back to the confidence, the belief in yourself. She knew she was doing the job. She knew that she was worthy of it.
Yes.
And that's what it's all about. So
absolutely. And obviously you need to have the skills and the experience and whatever, but then going that next step. So I might just very briefly introduce a related thing and then we can do another topic on it. But, you know, as you were saying that, you know, the men may be more confident or more aggressive, proactive in negotiation. But I've seen in many areas, but I know the statistics well for academia. But yeah, it's very true. So for example, for promotion to the highest level, like professor, you know, men tend to go when, you know, perhaps they have 60, 65, maybe even 70 or so % of the criteria marked off. Whereas the women wait until they can tick off every single one plus some, like you could almost say 120% to the nth degree. And it's fascinating because when I've chatted to both sides, but a lot of the men are just like, you know, well, I know I can do it. I haven't done it, but, you know, but I know I'll. And same with an opportunity. I know I'll say yes, and then I'll work out how to do it. Whereas often the females will actually want to be confident and know that they'll be the best person or can do it before they accept an opportunity. So I think that's a related one as well. So we need to work on too. Yeah,
absolutely. I agree with you on that too. So it's almost like women say, well, and this is what you hear women saying. You hear women saying, oh, we have to be better than the men to get the same position. We have to, you know, be that 120% good at everything, expert at everything, plus some. But they don't, you know. This is
and I think things are changing. I think perhaps in the very beginning, you know, when it was very unusual, you know, for married women to even work, let alone have senior positions. I think, like, if I look even in my own profession a couple of decades ago, like I to be honest, I think some of our pioneer women in dietetics were 2 or 3 times as good as their male counterparts to get to those senior levels. But I don't think that's necessarily the case anymore, because we've got, you know, policy and criteria and things around that. But it's having that experience and that confidence and knowing when is good enough, and that not everything has to be 90 or 100%.
Yes, that's so true, Dr. Liz. And like you say, we could talk on another
That's right. Another topic, another day.
Yes. It's something we can do with our leadership conversations in the Brisbane meetup. Do a little bit of that. So let me first of all ask you, Dr. Liz, if you would be willing to give us a little bit of background and history in your story on what made you get into this whole area and where you've been to get you to where you are today, where you've stepped out of the world of academia and into the world of business owner and entrepreneur.
in a snapshot, because once again, I could talk about this for days. It has been a wild ride and a very interesting wild ride. But look, I have a lifelong love of learning and education. So basically a nerd, but as I like to say, a cool nerd. But my family just shake their head and say, yeah, whatever you think. But they're like, no, not really. But definitely, a nerd. Always like science and health, and actually always love cooking as well. So although I actually did pharmacy before going into dietetics, but I won't sort of spend too much time in that. It was a very good background, but it wasn't sort of hands-on enough, and it was also a little bit too much about managing symptoms, not getting to the root of the problem,
Right.
which I'm very passionate about. So, so then, nutrition and dietetics has been a real natural fit, and I've been so lucky to have found something that I absolutely loved and have amazing mentors. And so I've worked in a variety of hospital places, and then soon got a taste for research, and realised that we need evidence if we want to get more funding or change things. It's really good to get the data. And so did a PhD and then postdoc, and for the past 20 years I've been in a variety of different hospital or combined hospital university positions, really improving nutrition care for patients in different areas. And I just as I guess as a little snapshot, I've worked with amazing people, from Maggie Beer, for example, from The Cook and the Chef, to
Yes,
help improve food in aged care for our oldies, to some of the other celebrity chefs, some well-known people in the States, to help them with their background. And then the more recent challenge was starting up a new program, because there aren't many opportunities. We've got lots, every state has several nutrition and dietetic programs. So a lot of people said, why on earth would you do that at Bond? It's a lot of work. And anyone who has done something like that will know it's a huge amount of work, lots of challenges. But the big one was, I just thought, my gosh, this is probably a once in a lifetime opportunity. When will there be another? And I didn't just want to be part of another program. Like Bond is different in that it's private. We could do smaller, boutique, very innovative things, which is, the dietitians with a difference, which is what I was very excited about. So very happy, I guess, as an academic for over 20 years. And then my whole work. Yeah. So do you want me to expand on that a little bit?
Please,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay.
yes.
So
Much as you want to give us, Dr. Liz.
yeah. Well, so a few things happened all at once. I guess the first thing is, I had an amazing team at Bond. It was going well, and it was, it was ticking along really nicely. I was, I had my fingers in lots of pies, and it was all going well. I was getting tired and probably close to burnout, being, busy mum, lots of this pre-COVID, lots of overseas travel, always doing a lot of things, plus researching at a high level. But the thing that really kind of absolutely pushed it was that, I was known for my work in nutrition and cancer. And unfortunately, within just a couple of weeks of each other, I had two friends diagnosed with cancer, and different types of cancer. And seeing the experience through their eyes was basically a big wake-up call for me. And, don't get me wrong, there was excellent care and the specialist care was great. We are so fortunate in Australia. Anyone who wants to have a bit of a whinge about the health system, look, I can join in. There's definitely many things that could be done better. But the fact that it's high quality and accessible for everyone, not just those with money or insurance, is key. But it was just the timing. Like, I was the only Australian on these big international nutrition and cancer evidence-based guidelines, which were getting very noticed in the research and clinical world. And yet no one spoke to my friends about nutrition during their treatment. And so lucky, I guess I was there and I could support them. But it was just this huge dichotomy between, this is what I've been spending the past couple of decades doing to make a difference, but it wasn't trickling down to those who are actually getting the care. And then I guess me always being the researcher, I'm like, how can this happen? What's going on? And, looking in the literature, and on average, it takes around about 12 or so years from when something is science or published in the nutrition area before it kind of gets embedded as part of everyday standard practice. And, my time of life, and to be honest, even if it was early, I'm not great with patience. Patience meaning I'm not terribly patient. I like to get things going. And I just thought, my gosh, I've trained, I've got there's all these amazing researchers in the world. And I still like research. I still keep my hand in that. I think it's very important. I think publication's very important. But I was sick of that time lag. I really wanted to offer services that you would expect to get, at one of the top cancer institutes or hospitals or private clinics or whatever, anywhere in the world, but to those who want it now, as opposed to waiting 10, 12, 15 years for all the evidence to trickle down. So that was actually the initial motivation from going from academia into the crazy wild ride of entrepreneurship and business.
Wow, that's quite a story, and there are a lot of key points that you've brought up. I want to ask you another question on the back of it, and that is, Dr. Liz, how do you now, given that your passion is to help people with cancer or who've been diagnosed with cancer through nutrition and diet, how do you get to them now? Apart from if they come to your clinic, how can you get it out there to all the cancer clinics and specialists and people?
Completely. It's a bit, So I guess that's online has been a huge thing. And I think that's one of the silver linings of COVID, because all the time I actually heard from, we were actually groundbreakers I've got to give a good plug for Princess Alexandra Hospital, because a project with speech pathology and dietetics were led by the speech team. They were great. Actually started doing telehealth and stuff via Zoom very early on, before COVID. But even then, there was a bit of a pushback from, some of the staff members saying, oh, the patients aren't going to like it, blah, 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 blah. But of course, then we get COVID, and suddenly we find out not only is a lot of it doable, not everything works. And to be honest, there's definitely something about different energy of being in person. Like, I still prefer in person, but a lot can be done online, and it gives us access anywhere around the world. So that is very exciting to me. And so I absolutely still do support people with cancer if they find their way through me. It's often through word of mouth, or perhaps they've spoken to someone or heard online. I do prefer to work with people over a longer period of time, though. So we've got some fantastic oncology dietitians that are part of our sort of Medicare system, and, you can see in the clinic and see them for a couple of times. And that's a very important service. And things like the Cancer Council, volunteers, like, they all provide amazing services. So it's becoming aware of those and tapping in where you can. I think where I'm unique is that, I've got the research and the connections, and so I can look at it from perhaps a different perspective than perhaps what's just in the textbook or whatever else, as I say, because it often takes 12 or 15 years or so for the evidence to make its way into standard practice. And I think that's what I enjoy, and actually appreciate supporting people over the whole journey, because it's the other thing people have to remember. Like, the nutrition recommendations change quite a bit depending on the individual, what stage of cancer, what type of treatment. There's many, many different factors. But I guess certainly promoting the great services that are out there. There's great services. I don't want to take away from that at all.
Yes.
And that was actually the link nutrition. That was sort of one of the goals. My key aim was basically to form a link or a bridge between the existing services. And I do think, with my background, it's pretty unique. And in fact, so unique that I actually don't know anyone, certainly not in Australia or New Zealand, and I don't know, possibly even internationally. I need to check it more, with my background and track record, that kind of does what I am doing now. So that's exciting, and also a bit scary.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So let's ask everybody here. I mean, Dr. Liz, to have access to Dr. Liz for anybody who has been diagnosed with some health issues, including cancer, and especially cancer, would love to know about Dr. Liz. So please help her to get herself out there and share this interview. The other question I want to ask you, Dr. Liz, is I presume that you also love to work with people before they get diagnosed with cancer.
Exactly. So that's, yeah, good. And good for mentioning that. So like I say, my heart, my passion, my research track record is, it is actually pretty diverse, which I think probably reflects the fact that I do get bored easily and like to try new things. But it is, I'm probably best known for my work with people experiencing cancer. But it's absolutely true. It's probably also the fact that I'm, getting a little bit heading into my prime as well, um, that you realise just how important our own health and well-being is to everything. So absolutely, I mean, no matter what stage of the cancer journey, there's always something we can do, even if it might not be, you know, curable. It's about improving quality of life and whatever else. It's, so many individual factors. It's hard to say. But of course, if we can catch it early or even prevent it from happening in the first place, oh my gosh, that's I guess what really gets me excited, because you can just see that difference then, that difference that it has not just to that person, but their family, their friends, the whole ripple effect. And so, yeah, I'm very passionate. So not only do, I support people who are impacted by cancer and any sort of chronic disease, but actually what's interesting, I guess, the majority of my clients at the moment actually are similar, I guess, to how I was, or, basically senior people who worked incredibly hard, not necessarily good at doing self-care themselves, 45 or so plus, and realizing that, this amazing body that they had as a teenager or in their 20s and, living on coffee and burning the midnight oil doesn't bounce back like they used to. And so a lot of people I support now are basically professionals or entrepreneurs, actually, because that's a crazy lifestyle too, which we can talk about, who want to improve their energy, their productivity, their health and their well-being, but they don't have much time. And I can absolutely appreciate that. So it's, I talk about my 3Ms with the mindset, menu and movement, but sort of a holistic approach, 360 approach to how they can optimize themselves and their energy and their productivity and their lifestyle, but in a realistic way, a realistic way. So for example, an entrepreneur or a businessman who, does a lot of negotiation and business over drinks or meals, telling them that they can never drink or never eat out at a restaurant is not going to work.
Yeah, it's not workable.
No. So something that's actually going to work, work for their lifestyle.
Their lifestyle and career. Yes, that is so true. And I love that you've mentioned that, because you're so right. Because when we're young, under 30, maybe under 40, we really do have that perception, unless we do have a health issue that comes up. If we're healthy and normal and doing these things, we have this perception that we're always going to be like that. And of course, it's not until we get into our 40s and 50s and 60s that we realize that our bodies are not like they used to be. Our energy is not what it used to be. We can't sustain the same lifestyle and keep going. And so, like you say, if we started looking after ourselves at that young age, when we have the full energy and the full health, then it's a different picture when we're in our 60s, and sometimes
later, completely. And little tweaks, like because when I talk to people about this, everyone would rate their health and well-being as a high priority. Like, it's not as if people don't think it's important. It's just that when you're very busy and you're very driven, it's one of those, as you say, unless they've got a diagnosis or a prime reason, it just keeps getting down the list. And the other thing I've noticed is very driven people are very good at overriding those little messages, or not necessarily in tune with their body and the mind as they should be. So they're often, keep going, soldier on, keep going, and they get the back pain and the neck pain, keep going, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, keep going. Hopefully it eventually gets picked up, but sometimes it's not until they, get a heart attack or a diagnosis that they then realise now's the time they need to do something different. Yeah.
Yes, that's so true too. Like you say, we do. We ignore those messages. Obviously, every time there's something in the body, they say that it's coming from, it's a message. It's the body is a conveyor of the message from the mind, from the brain, from however you look at it, and it manifests in our body. But there's another issue, and it could be stress, like we say. It's probably
big.
a little stress.
Oh, it's such a big one. We should probably do another one on that. Just the chronic stress and its impact is huge. Yeah.
And we don't realize most of us don't even realize
It's become the norm.
Stress,
It's become it's become the norm. It's like the frog in the hot water.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's great. Now let me also, so that's a wonderful story, and thank you for being, so candid and honest about what you've been through so far. So let's ask you, Dr. Liz, I know you've probably touched on this already, but if I said what's the one thing, what is it that's the most important thing in your business for you today? What do you want to achieve? What's your driving force in your business?
My driving force is really about helping others do better and achieve their goals. And obviously my expertise is the nutrition, health and wellbeing angle, and I've actually got some good stats in terms of how that can improve so much with, productivity and memory and energy and all that sort of stuff. But the thing that's sort of the vehicle, I guess, the actual mission is really just to help people improve their lives, realizing that improving health and well-being doesn't actually have to take much time, and little tweaks. Like, I'm very strategic, very like what I used in research and academia, like, little tweaks that give you the greatest bang for your buck. Like, that's what I'll always focus on. And really that it doesn't have to be so all or nothing. Like, these successful people, a lot of them very successful, but perhaps lacking or not as balanced in certain areas. So by improving their energy, they can be more productive, frees up time. And some of them, and I think I've chatted about this, some of my US clients use that to do more work. And look, that's what they choose to do. But what I would prefer is that they then use that time with their family, or being a bit more active, or just getting some quiet time, nature time, thinking time, and just sort of well-rounding. Oh my gosh, it just gives such a tremendous enjoyment and I guess more depth and colour to life. So in a more succinct way, I'm just really passionate about helping people to improve their lives in a sort of more balanced, holistic way, and realise that it doesn't have to be that hard. Like, often we make things so hard. Got to spend 2 hours in the gym and live on green smoothies and never drink again. And then, not surprisingly, that lasts for 3 or 4 days, and we're back to normal. Whereas if we just do little tweaks over 6 months or even 12 months, it's amazing how all those little changes add up.
That is so true. And just that little tweak thing, I have an example of how that works too. And that, if you think about a plane and its path that it's set for, you just have to make a 1 degree difference at the beginning, and it makes a huge difference at the end. And I mean, in that way, it might be off track, but in this way, you start being on track.
Yeah,
and that's so right. And as you say, these things that are not really going to work with our lifestyle, or we don't really passionate about drinking that green smoothie or whatever. Those are the things that we drop after a while. So
completely,
it doesn't have to be hard. I love it, and I love that what you're saying is what the end result of what you do is help people to have a better experience, or a great, wonderful experience of their life. And in every way. So, and you're so right that our health is the number one thing. The number one thing, there've been many surveys done where a lot of the most successful people have been asked what are the 2 most important things in life, and one of them is your health, because without your health you have nothing.
Completely. Yeah.
So I just want to say hello to another guest, Gail Tagaro. Hi, Gail. Lovely to have you here. She said hello to us both. So, you probably can't see, I'm not sure, Dr. Liz.
Yeah, I get little bits and pieces. There's lots of things to look at all at once, but very good. Yeah.
So, we've got about another 10 minutes. So let me ask you another question. If you were giving mentoring to a new budding entrepreneur or business owner who was looking at doing what you did, either moving from the world of academia into their own business, or just someone going into their own business from scratch, what would you say would be your biggest tip, like your secret formula to be successful?
Mindset is a huge one. Mindset is really a huge one because, even though I've, been in many sort of senior and, very interesting and challenging positions and, on very good money, when it comes to business and you're actually asking money for your services, it can be quite interesting. Some people are naturally brilliant at it. I found for me, I definitely need to work on my mindset to get through some of those little bumps and things around whatever it is, value, self-worth, even asking for money, or all that sort of stuff. So I think mindset is really a huge one. Definitely seeking support, whether it be through mentors, role models, amazing community of people who are currently doing or achieved where you'd like to be, because they are an invaluable source of support, advice. You can also learn from their experiences and mistakes and not have to personally do them all yourself, which is quite nice. And I think the third one is perhaps, and I was very guilty of this, I definitely overestimated how much could be achieved in the short term, but then on the same time, underestimated how much can be achieved sort of medium to long term. And so I think actually getting a bit of a, business plan or goals and do your research, particularly before you start investing too much time and money, is key. And, we all know the crazy statistics on how many entrepreneurs and businesses actually survive long term. So I think improve your odds by actually doing a lot of, and I'll be the first to admit, I probably did just about everything wrong. So just remember, this last piece of advice that I'm giving is coming more from what, in hindsight, perhaps, because I felt, and this is perhaps, the ego or the identity jumping in, but I felt because I was, quite well known in research and senior that, and I had people from all around the world contacting me at least a few times a week, if not almost daily, to see them as a client. But as an academic, I didn't have time. So I did assume that as soon as I say, look, I'm seeing clients now, that they would all line up. And then, of course, there's so many other different factors to business. And I think when that didn't happen immediately, it absolutely shook my confidence, and it starts all these sorts of things. Did I do the right thing? Whatever. So for me, and my advice is definitely surround yourself with the right sort of people, ideally people who are walking the walk or have already been and achieved where you want to go. Mindset is critical. And I think for me anyway, I keep reaching different levels. And it's amazing how it's all relative. So, for some of the people that I'm, working with or engaging with, all around the world, some of them are very, very successful business people, multi-millions. And it's interesting because we actually have similar challenges. It's just that they have a few more zeros that they add on to some of their decisions and some of their challenges. And it was actually really good to brainstorm and talk about some of my things, because they got it. But then when you hear them talk about their things, I'm just like, oh my God, so for me, it's kind of like the mindset thing is an ongoing process. So having ongoing support on that is critical. And I think having a bit of a plan, having a community, accountability, and the try things before necessarily investing too much money, because the money can get chewed up quite quickly unless you have a plan in place and closely monitoring it. But I don't want that to put people off. I mean, obviously there's amazing perks to being an entrepreneur and having your own business, and the lifestyle and the freedom and being able to genuinely help people is absolutely phenomenal. But I think at least being aware of the wild ride of the journey. We had this map in academia, and I think at one of our meetups, I think the lovely Nicole Yates in Brain Health sort of used that map where it's like, the swamp and the crazy desert and all these hard things. We used to use that for the PhD process. So, there'll be amazing things, but then you've got to climb the mountain. But, just in entrepreneurship, there's that same thing, I think. There's definitely lots of hills and there'll be smooth runs, but there's definitely lots of challenges as well.
Thank you so much. That's really, really helpful for anyone listening, I'm sure. And put the comments in the chat, and we'll have a look at them towards the end too in about 5 minutes. So, Dr. Liz, on that note then, and I don't know if you've probably already covered this too, but what would you say would be your biggest challenges in growing your business? Apart from what you've already mentioned, is there anything else, or have you already covered it?
I probably have, but I'll just expand a little bit, I guess, was that, as I've alluded to, I do get bored easily and I like to do. So I went big, hard when I started. So, I had clinics, I had meal services, online programs, but without, and like I said, I overestimated how much you can do a short amount of time. So that's a very good way of chewing through money. So the biggest thing, and I guess one of the key lessons, was choose one thing and do it really well. Because there's nothing, and this is what I tell myself, because, I'm like, oh, but it's such a good idea and, I really want to do it. But there's nothing stopping me or anyone else from adding that or trying that down the track.
Yes.
But it doesn't mean you got to do it all at once. So I think a key learning and key advice is to niche, choose one thing that you're good at or very passionate about, and get that to a certain level before you then keep adding on other things.
That is so. That is
a big learning.
Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so, and I always ask my entrepreneurs this question, Dr. Liz, do you like to learn?
I'm the classic. So yes, absolutely. Because I obviously with the academic background, and as I said, definitely a nerd at heart. I keep trying to tell everyone that I'm a cool nerd, but I don't know how true that seems to be. Thank you. Thank you. If I say it enough, maybe people will start believing it.
All of our listeners.
So yeah, I do. I think it's critical, and I think it's about the growth mindset, because, if you just think we've reached whatever it is, and knowing that there's always more, and it doesn't matter how amazing you are in a particular area or even how bad you are, we can all improve. And that's why I think surrounding yourself with amazing people, but also who might be a couple stages ahead of where you are or where you want to go, because it just puts everything into perspective. And you're thinking, I'm worrying about this little thing. They've already done that. And like they're showing that can already be done, and they're, doing it to the nth degree. So absolutely love learning. And and I think we all should, but I think having the support and doing it perhaps in a focused way is important too. Yeah.
Fantastic. And the last question before we wrap up is, what is your dream for your business and your life, or your life and your business in, say, 5 to 10 years? Where do you see yourself in 5 and 10 years? And,
very exciting. Well, I really would, like I say, like to be the link and support, whether it be people with chronic diseases like cancer, or busy CEOs or professionals, to get the most out of their life by improving their energy and productivity and general nutrition and well-being, while still fitting in with their busy lifestyle. I love to do that. I do enjoy writing and giving presentations. So I'd like to have more time so that I can do that. I will be downsizing because my son is finishing year 12 this year, and my daughter's got a couple more years. So, wouldn't it be nice to travel around the world, continue with the online program to support people from anywhere in the world, but also do in-person retreats And, eventually, I definitely have a secret. Well, it's probably not so secret now. I have a desire to build a beautiful place which just, aids with healing and well-being. So either somewhere along the beautiful beach or rainforest or somewhere like that where you can have all the beautiful services, but in an amazing location. So
Oh, wow.
that's some of those
Big
big,
dream,
big, crazy
wow.
dreams. Yeah,
Big, hairy, audacious dreams.
exactly.
Oh, Dr. Liz, that's amazing. And it's time for us to wrap it up. So I'd just like to ask you, do you have one final pearl nugget, a pearl of wisdom or gold nugget, pearl nugget, that's a good one, isn't it? That you'd like to throw out there to everybody, and also how can people get in touch with you who would like to learn more, talk to you, have a chat, whatever?
Sure. I think probably the little nugget is along the line of you are so much more capable than
Mm.
you even can imagine. Even can imagine. And in
Mhm.
fact, it's us that are really putting on the boundaries and the limits.
Yeah,
So
we get
I think, yeah, completely. So I think keeping that in mind and, and finding ways and support and mentors and whatever that can help your motivation and confidence, but also help clear the path a little bit.
mm,
So if you are passionate about something or always wanted to try something, I would argue to
mm,
do it in a little bit of a sensible way, like, make sure you got the funds and have a bit of a plan. But anyone I think who is single-minded and passionate, I believe is going to be successful in one way or the other. And just to be clear, my definition of success includes
mm,
financial, but it's not purely financial.
mm,
It's much more about all the other aspects. So yeah, I think find what you're really interested in, what you're really passionate about, and
go for it.
yeah, absolutely, completely.
Like you say, surround yourself with the people, get mentors, go to
Mhm,
who can help you,
mhm.
have positive people around you, all of those things that you've shared
Makes
with
a
us.
big difference. Makes a big difference. Yeah, completely,
Make the
completely.
commitment and the decision, you're doing it, and go for it.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
of course, you and I, we have had many of these kinds of conversations already, and as you say, it's all around mindset, whether it's in
Oh,
your area of speciality
mm,
or mine. With
mm,
we both work in that area, and it all
mm,
comes down to mindset and
mm.
how we think. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very powerful. And if we can just manage it in a
Mm,
more helpful way,
mm,
yeah, incredibly powerful. Yeah.
mm. So, Dr. Liz, how can people reach you?
Well, I'm all over the socials. LinkedIn is my favorite spot. So feel free to hit me up with a message there. Otherwise, yeah, check out websites and emails and everything else. And yeah, always happy to have a chat and see how I can best help support you or a family member. So yeah.
So on LinkedIn, it's Dr. Liz Esenring.
That's a good point. Yeah, if you
Yeah.
just search,
What?
it should just be, I think, Dr. Liz.
Esenring.
Let's check how that
Yes.
is.
And Link Nutrition is your website. Is that right?
Um, yes, but it also just comes up if you just type in drliznutrition.com.
Oh,
That
good.
will come up. That will come up as
As
well.
well.
Drliznutrition.com is probably the easiest.
Okay. So also, Dr. Liz, if you send me your contact details,
I
like
will do that
your
right
URL
now, and then yeah,
one,
I will do that. That'll be great.
not on here because we'll close out of here in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Then I will do a post and copy and paste them, and then you can pick up also this interview, do a post and put your
Lovely,
contact
and we
details
will
there too.
reshare.
So once
Lovely.
again, I'm honoured. Thank you so much for coming on to this session with me. These sessions I'm holding called Entrepreneurs Gold Nuggets to really share your pearls of wisdom and gold nuggets. We are honoured to have you here, Dr. Liz, and you've shared a lot of amazing information. So thank you so much.
My pleasure, Karen. Thank you, and keep doing what you're doing because having support from entrepreneurs is so incredibly important. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. So now we'll end the broadcast, say goodbye to all
Mm-hmm.
the viewers and listeners, and I'll see you in a minute, Dr.
Mm-hmm.
Liz.